I'm Scuba of Hotflush Recordings and Music Not Diving, and you are listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast, music and football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host Daz. This is my music and football episode where I bring on a musician, DJ, producer to talk about the two loves of life. For me, obviously family comes first, but then it's music and football. It's entwined with one another. I've got a great guest. He is my last guest of the year. It's crazy to think that we're already about to finish 2025, but it's been an amazing year for me and the podcast. Very happy the way it's gone. But I've got a great guest to end the year with. He is label boss of Hotflush Recordings. He also has, to me, the best electronic music podcast going. It's called Music Not Diving. I welcome Paul Rose, better known as Scuba. Welcome, mate, to the pod.
How are you doing? That's very nice of you to say such kind things about our podcast. That's thank you. Thank you so much. Nice to be here.
It's a brilliant podcast, because it's real. It's not scripted like quite a few podcasts are, these days, and kind of overreactions. Especially footy podcasts are just what sells. That's what sells.
That's the whole genre, isn't it? It's like exaggerated, as you say, reactions to things which are, things which do genuinely generate emotional responses in all of us who follow football. But yeah, it's obviously just turned up to 11 for those social media clips, right?
Yeah, it's like Spinal Tap for podcasts.
Yeah, it is exactly that. Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm really, really glad you've come on, mate. Paul is an Arsenal supporter, so I know he's very happy right now. And as people know, I am a Liverpool supporter. I'm way down in 8th place. But, by the time the podcast comes out, hopefully Liverpool are at least back in the top 4. But we're going to start with music. And Paul, for you, I always like to know what was playing in your house as a kid. And did it have any influence on your musical tastes?
Well, my mum is actually a Scouser, so I'm technically half Scouse. Yeah, exactly. And so she grew up in the 60s, so obviously the Beatles were the big thing for her. And that the Beatles were, I think, like basically of kind of popular music. Both my parents are big kind of classical music people, but of popular music, the Beatles were definitely played more than anything else. And as a kid, that was the kind of, I suppose, the stuff that was played in the house that, most obviously sort of connected with me. But we weren't really, when some people get asked that question, and that's a question that I ask a lot on my podcast too. And, when people say, oh yeah, like it was like funk and soul is just all over the place. And like, these amazing, records of the 70s were getting played. That was just not the case at all in my house. And I kind of wish that it had been, but whatever, like, you can't, relitigate your, your childhood. But basically lots of Mahler symphonies were played basically, and which are very, fairly impenetrable to a young kid, obviously. But my dad was also a sort of collector. I've got a ton of LPs actually of my dad's, all of which he's signed. I think that was the thing that they did, like in the 70s. It was quite common to like sign your initials whenever you bought an LP. So I've got like a copy of Led Zeppelin Houses of the Holy with JR signed on the buttocks of one of the figures on the front cover of that album. Pretty sure it's Houses of the Holy. No, it definitely is Houses of the Holy. And like there were bits and pieces played, but it was definitely a classical household overall. But with that, as I say, exception of the Beatles, which was ran down my throat pretty hard as a kid.
Do you think, for me, my dad was a rocker and my mum was a Beatles, Elvis fan, but they also played classical. I didn't understand it as a kid starting to get older, I really, really do appreciate classical. Are you kind of the same?
Yeah, I basically mostly listen to classical music now. Apart from, you know, obviously I kind of work as a well, I mean, like most of what I do on a day-to-day basis is making music. So like I'm just surrounded by that stuff and obviously listening to stuff for the label. But when I kind of clock off for the day, have you got the Adagio app? The Adagio app is like just an unbelievable classical music streaming app, and I just yeah, it's just brilliant. That's basically all I listen to. So it's like, um, you know, Vivaldi and Bach, and I mean Bartok, and just basically the whole kind of spectrum. I mean, what I've just named, there's like three composers which cover like 300 years of music. But that's just kind of what I like, really. And I guess it helps me switch off from what I'm doing for quote unquote work, which can be a little bit, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes. Sometimes,
Well,
not always. I mean, I do like the house music and bass music as well. But it's in terms of like actually sort of like listening to music for enjoyment, I would say classical is what I listen to the most. Yeah.
I I I love classical, and I put it on in the car when I want my kids to shut up.
Right. Okay.
I've got four little ones, so all girls.
Wow.
So yeah, my household is a circus, and whenever I play classical in the car, it's time to kind of calm down. I'd rather
Right.
listen to classical than like you know some of the children's music that's going around right now. It's just it gets in your head, and
Well, okay. I don't have any kids, so I don't have any exposure to that stuff at all. I'm godfather to the fourth child of a friend of mine. So I've seen what a four-child household is like, and yeah, that is a lot. That is commitment right there. How old are your kids?
7, 9, and 2 10 year olds.
Right. Okay. That sounds intense.
Oh, it is. I actually took them to the pub for the first time last last month. Uh,
Okay.
the wife was away, so all right, I'm taking them down to the pub. I'll see how
Wait,
they
hang on. Where do you live in the States?
Austin.
Austin, Texas. Wow. So you can
Yeah.
bring kids into the pub in Texas, can you? That's
Oh
surprising.
yeah. Well, I mean, as long I mean, the games here are
Companies.
played 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. The latest one is I think 2 p.m. So yeah, it was like a 10 o'clock game, and I
Okay.
brought the kids, and they're actually well behaved. I was surprised, and
Nice. Okay.
they got the photographs taken with the Premier League trophy, which was even
Okay.
better. But yeah. Also want to ask, was your household the top of the pops family, like most English people were back in the day?
Yeah. I mean, not. I mean, we definitely. What I mean, I watched Top of the Pops for sure. I've got one sibling, younger sister. So it's kind of incumbent on me. It's quite often incumbent, I think, on the oldest child to kind of set the tone in terms of what kind of popular culture is is most enjoyed in our household. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Top of the Pops, not that much. I got very into metal quite young. So I played guitar was the instrument that I played. I played a bunch of instruments when I was a kid. The first one that really connected with me was the guitar. So from the age of about 11 or 12, I was really into hard rock and metal, basically. So I mean, that's 11, 12. I suppose is usually that's the kind of age where music starts to become important to kids, often anyway. And so that was the first kind of music, and obviously you don't get a lot of metal and hard rock on Top of the Pop, so it wasn't a completely obvious thing for me to be watching. I I'm just trying to think. It was more magazines, I think. That was the kind of medium that kind of drew me into it. So stuff like, Kerrang and Raw magazine and those kinds of things. That's the kind of media that really got me into, or that I got into as a result of being into music, basically. Well, I mean, having said that, I definitely did watch Top of the Pops. And I'm trying to think if there was probably like Saturday morning kids shows that you'd have bands popping up on too. But yeah, Top of the Pops was yeah, not central.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it was more of a family thing where you'd have your tea time around Top of the Pops on Thursdays.
Okay, no, we were definitely not that family.
No,
No, no.
yeah, I had me shandy on Thursday nights, which
Okay,
it was big for like a 12, 13-year-old to have a nice little drink.
right.
Yeah, things have changed. No shandy for my kids at 12. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, I mean, the only kind of like rock stuff you would really hear on Top of the Pops was like Status Quo, Slade, and that was more novelty.
Yeah, and apart from the occasional period where one of the bands would get get into the top 10 or whatever, I remember Iron Maiden had a rare number one single in 91, which was just around the time that I was really getting into them. And I think it was Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter. And I think they put it out in January because that's basically that was the only time they could the label could guarantee it was like it's going to be a slow enough week that they might have a shot at number one. And lo and behold, it's like third week of Jan. Yeah, okay, we got the number one. And obviously if you're number one, you go on top of the pops. So that was, a rare example of that happening. But yeah, I know you're right. You're right. Hardly any of that stuff. You probably had more dance stuff actually than rock stuff, like because I suppose like dance pop, that's kind of a more of an obvious, or the popular end of dance music in the kind of late 80s, early 90s. That's kind of more of an obvious thing for them to have on there rather than, I don't know who you into. My kind of rock stuff was like, yeah, like I mean, yeah, like Megadeth and Slayer, and then, I mean that's not pop top of the pop music, is it really? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Well, you can't see them miming either, you know.
or
I,
no, but I mean they did it live though, didn't they? For a while, there was definitely a period of Top of the Pops where everyone played live. But I mean that must have been a nightmare to put together. Can you imagine it? Like
Mhm.
proper bands playing live, yeah.
Yeah, I've had a few guests on, and they told me like there's three stages at Top of the Pops,
Right,
but
right.
there's only one crowd, so it
Okay, yeah. So
gets
people are like, yeah,
yeah, they get moved over to the stages, but yeah, it's just part of our childhoods. I mean, I trying to explain Top of the Pops to some of my American friends, and I guess the closest thing would be Bandstand that they used to have.
the thing is that they had MTV and we didn't.
Yeah,
Well, you could get MTV if you had Sky, but I mean, we didn't have Sky. And most people, almost everyone, didn't have Sky. So that era was the MTV era of the music industry. But in the UK, like we just didn't have it. So like you say, you have this once a week opportunity to see, the bands that you're listening to on the radio, or the records you're listening to on the radio. So yeah, it was completely unique. And of course it was crucial for if you're vaguely into pop music, then yeah, you're definitely going to watch it. I mean there were other things. I mean, like I remember do you remember The Word?
yeah, yeah.
Like that was obviously a little bit older because that was on a, I think that was on a, they timed it so you'd watch it when you go out, when you come out from the pub. So I think it started at 11, didn't it, or something. And I remember like Nirvana were on The Word, Rage Against the Machine were on The Word, all that kind of stuff, which is obviously a little bit further on. But like something that when I was sort of, I guess, 13, 14, that sort of age, that stuff was just, I mean, yeah, that programming was just completely up my street. I was a little bit too young to go to the pub, but sitting around, maybe smoking a bit of weed with your mates. If the Word comes on, it's like, yeah, okay, let's fucking watch this. Also, Beavis and Butthead, but Beavis and Butthead was a MTV thing.
Hmm.
So, and that was on Channel 4, wasn't it, for a while? Certainly, they had a period where they were showing old, probably wasn't like the totally fresh episodes, but yeah, like older episodes of Beavis and Butthead, and their music programming, sorry, on Beavis and Butthead was completely what I was into at that time too. So yeah.
So where did the dance music come in then? I mean, if you're heavy into like heavy metal and guitar.
Yeah, so basically I discovered drugs and the ability to get into clubs with a fake ID, aged like sort of 14, 15. It was really the drugs that did it, I have to say. I mean, there were a couple of like important musical moments. Like, so I remember being on a school trip, I would have been aged like 13-ish. One of the kids in the year above had a tape of Dougal at World Dance or something like that, or Fantasia, one of those things, and it was like 92 era hardcore. It was before it went fully happy hardcore, and that music to this day, I mean, I just remember hearing it for the first time and thinking, wow, this is the fucking coolest shit I've ever heard. And to this day, like, I love that music almost more than anything else. Certainly more than any other dance music. That's the stuff which just like I just love it. Um, but it wasn't. I mean, that didn't lead immediately to me going to clubs. Like, that was a bit too young. So, like I said, maybe a year or two after that, probably 2 years after that, um, suddenly realised it was possible to get into clubs, in a way which is probably not the case now. But it was also coincided with me and my mates realizing that you could also, buy acid and ecstasy if you wanted to, and like taking it was actually quite fun. So, and a lot more fun if you were in a in a club with some awesome music playing. So I went through a period, yeah, in my teenage years of I didn't stop listening. I didn't stop playing guitar. I didn't stop listening to rock music. I kind of had a kind of dual thing where I would, have certain weekends I would go raving, and certain weekends I would still, go to gigs and stuff. And that lasted most of my teenage years, or certainly, like, say from like 14, 15 to the time I went to uni, kind of thing, to like 18, 17, 18, 19, that sort of period. So like a good like 3, 4 years of kind of doing both things. And it was great because, I mean, I lived in London. It was an amazing time for music. So this is like, so I guess, so from 94 until 98 is the kind of period I'm talking about. And that was an amazing period for music. Obviously every band came through London. I mean, loads of bands were still playing, and tickets were still really cheap. Loads of bands would play at theatre venues. So, the amount of bands, and from that kind of sort of grunge, in quotation marks, era, that I was able to see at like Brixton Academy or Forum or whatever, and seeing Metallica on the Black Album tour, and I mean, just like Guns N' Roses at Wembley Stadium, I mean, all that kind of shit, which was just on the one hand, it was so exciting at the time. Probably in the years after that, kind of took it for granted a little bit. But like looking back now, I was so lucky to be able to do all that stuff, and at the same time be in London when it wasn't the absolute golden era of dance music. It was kind of missed out by a few years, but it was still fucking great. There was still an amazing amount of great clubs, still an amount of great raves. I was super into drum and bass as well as techno and house. So I was able to go to, loads of just brilliant clubs and drum and bass jungle raves. And that's kind of a unique period and place, to be able to have done all that stuff. So I do feel incredibly lucky to have had that kind of that set of musical experiences as a teenager,
Yeah, I think for me as well, Liverpool and Manchester so close. I had obviously, Nation, Cream, and
Yeah, right.
the end of Hacienda, and then two of my favorite record shops, Eastern Bloc and Three Beat. You're surrounded by kind of different sounds, and it sounds like London. Obviously, like you said, had the dubstep, had the breaks, had the drum and bass, had house, techno. It was such a melting pot of different genres. And to me, still, Fabric is one of the best clubs in the world. It just, Cream was great for what it was for me growing up. But when I went to Fabric, I was like, oh shit, this is what a real club is supposed to look and sound like. Because
Right,
I don't like all this bright light bollocks. Just give
right.
me a dark, dingy club with an absolutely fucking amazing sound system.
Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm solid with that, you know. And
Absolutely. I never went to Nation actually, so I've tried to get people on my podcast to kind of explain to me or describe to me what it was like, and I can't really picture it. But I mean, Cream. Nation the venue and obviously Cream the club. Like, I mean, I read about it so much in the dance press at the time. It was just like hyped up to just a ridiculous extent. And I never got around to it to actually get up and go there. But I mean, was it as good as everyone says it was?
Well, it was when you're on drugs. I mean,
Well, I mean, that's kind of part of the part of the fun, right? An
yeah,
important part
well,
of the fun.
I mean, it's just like anywhere though, Paul, is, once you keep going, it loses some of that like mystique. And it did for me. I was just going to just, pretty much get fucked up. And, I got tired of, like, no disrespect to Paul Oakenfold, but I just got kind of tired of the mega trance that was getting
Right.
played. I would go towards more in the annex, like Youssef
Oh
playing
yeah.
with Doc Martin and Joski, more of like the US house sound. But yeah, it was just getting packed and just not with the people I was particularly like, mates with. It was like just to impress. And
Right.
that's not me. It's just like you go to dance and I don't give a shit what you wear. Like,
Mm.
just wear comfortable clothes. Like, I mean, the amount of people, like girls in heels and like fellas in like buttoned up shirts. I just didn't get it. It's like, give me a t-shirt and a pair of jeans. I'm ready to dance my arse off. So, but I mean, the early days, the golden days were just bliss at
Mm.
Cream. They really were. But, it wasn't until like Bugged Out came that
Oh
really
yeah.
kick things off for me. Just seeing Justin Robertson just
What year was that? Like 98 or something, or a bit
yeah,
before?
98, 99. Like,
Yeah.
to me, like the golden era of Cream.
Yeah.
It was just great to just be there, and especially the home city as well, just proud. But we also had Voodoo, which was more
Yeah.
techno based.
Yeah.
And that was, sweat coming from the ceilings. You tasted it in your mouth.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. You should
Yeah.
have probably had a tetanus shot on the Monday. But you just kept on going back. But yeah, I mean, I love to reminisce about those days, just because I don't really club anymore. Like I said, I've got four kids, so my clubbing days are kind of, it has to, you have to kind of, I have to really, really like be into you. Like, I just saw Sasha and Digweed in Dallas
Yeah.
about 2 months ago, which is brilliant. I saw you when you last came to Austin
Oh really? When was that? That was a
a
long time ago.
couple of years ago, and I think it
Really?
was Kingdom.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's more than a couple of years ago.
Yeah, yeah,
That's like that's like 10 years ago,
yeah.
surely.
Well, that's my life.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Okay. That
surprised.
that place was pretty good, as I recall, as clubs go. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was,
well, I mean, it's like a little sardine can with a
yeah.
really good sound system. You
Yeah,
know,
right, exactly. So
uh, and again, that's what it's all about. You can fit about, I think, 200, 300 in there, and
yeah.
the sound system just rocked. And I'm
Yeah.
sure, it was great listening to you, but it's got to be even better when you play on a good sound system.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've just come back from a tour of Asia actually, and I'm still ridiculously jet lagged as a result of it, actually. But I mean, I played a wide range of places, and there's a couple of amazing clubs, as you'd expect. Like, so when you do that kind of tour, I played like eight gigs, a complete mixed bag of places. There's a club called Oil in the city called Shenzhen, which is just over the border from Hong Kong. It's like half-hour train ride from Hong Kong. It's one of these kind of new Chinese cities where like 15 million people live there, kind of thing, but you've never heard of it. But they've got this club called Oil, and I mean it's the quintessential dark room with a massive sound system. Like, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, there really isn't anything more to say about it than that, but so good. And yeah, I played there on a Thursday and people just going for it, it's just absolutely like what you want, totally what you want. And unfortunately, that's less, I mean, that was always um not the exception, but like it was never like, what you got every time. You know, there's never been a time there's a tendency to look back at the kind of golden era of raving, and as you say, a lot of it was imperfect, and a lot of it was a bit poncy sometimes, and like, you know, those clubs were never the standard. But I think now more than ever, that kind of aesthetic, that kind of like, you know, that kind of approach to putting on a club kind of experience in kind of quotation marks is, you know, it's less prevalent than it's ever been. You know, it's less common than it's ever been. And loads of reasons for that. Some of them are cultural, some of them are economic, some of them are social. But when it's right, like, you can't miss it. You know, it's like it's the correct environment for the music. It's where it's the natural habitat, you know, for that kind of stuff. And when you see it, you know, it's impossible to miss, you know, and it's just absolutely enduring. And so when you find a good one, got to make the most of it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and it's sad that, you know, I'm over here, and you know, I read a lot of like so many UK clubs closing down,
Yeah,
just because, like, I mean, on one part of me, I kind of understand the kids wanting to go to the festivals because they pay this amount of money and they can see 20 of their favorite DJs. But again, growing up for me, I would go to the club for the resident DJ, and
yeah.
the headliner would be a plus. I mean, for me, you know, the Paul Bleasdales of Cream, just again, I would go to see them first. And I think kids don't really care too much about the resident local DJ anymore. It's just like headliner, headliner, headliner.
There's much more of a sense of going to see someone, right? I mean, I used to go out a lot. Certainly when I went out, starting out to house and techno stuff, often I wouldn't know anyone who was playing. You know, I just knew it was going to be this kind of music. I knew the kind of music was going to be the stuff that I liked, so I would go there. Occasionally, there would be someone I knew or I'd heard of, but most of the time, it just wasn't important. Like, I knew what kind of music it was going to be. It was going to be either, you know, proper techno or trancey stuff or house, basically. And that was you know, the major factor. It was a bit different with drum and bass and jungle, just because, you know, you have 1 hour set, so you can't, you by definition get a sense of who the DJs are, and, you know, just 'cause it changes every hour, like, and you know who's good, you know, or who's perceived to be good, you know, who's got a good reputation or whatever, because people just talk about it more because it's more of a part of the night. The changeover of a DJ is more of a part of the night. But most of the time, you know, it just wasn't. It was the name of the rave that, even in those situations, it was the name of the rave that was the most important thing. So it was I'm going to One Nation. It's not I'm going to turn to see Andy C at One Nation. It's like I'm going to One Nation, or I'm going to, you know, Innovation or whatever. Name your, you know, drum and bass rave. Um, those were the most important things, and then the secondary thing was the venue. But you kind of trusted the rave to put it in a good venue. You know, you trusted the promoter to know what they were doing on that score. And it was almost like the least the least important thing was the identity of the bloke, and it almost always was a bloke who was playing the records. And it's flipped now. Like, the opposite is true. And as a result, it's you know, largely a ticketed thing now. It's like going to see a band was, you know, like, you know, none of those things were true for my early experiences going to see bands. Like, if you go and see a band, you know the band, you got the album at home, you know the names of the songs. Like, you're going to see them, you didn't give a fuck usually about the support band. Like, do you know what I mean? You might listen to them, but you know, it was a massively diminished importance compared to the headliner. Dance music is like that now. I mean, they haven't quite got to the point of like putting the volume down to halfway like they do for you know, rock gigs, you know,
Mm.
and having the lights kind of like, halfway on. It's not quite like that, but it's not far off it. And there definitely are some DJs who have that clause in the contract, by the way. The the sound system clause, it's got to be 6 dB higher when I come on. But yeah, it's bad, I think, that it's got like that. It's in some ways a kind of natural progression, I think, for it developing as a quote unquote business. You can kind of understand how it's happened, but it's not good for the music, and it's not good for I think, the experience of it. And there are still good parties and there are still good clubs, as mentioned, but I think overall you're correct in what you're saying. And yeah, it's I could talk for a long time about how shit it is, but it's better it's definitely better to focus on the good stuff that is still happening, because there is definitely still good stuff happening.
Oh, 100%. I mean, for me, the likes of like Lee Burridge, Craig Richards, Danny Howells started as openers, and they've worked their way up, and now they're headlining, and that's they bode well for so many years being the opening DJ. I mean, and sometimes I think, especially with Danny, he kind of got stuck with that tag until he broke out. He started putting out more of his own tracks. But yeah, I just think we're kind of missing that, and I think it's the same over in the States as well. You have these massive EDM parties, and the local clubs are just basically hanging on by a thread.
And it's not just the demand, the the kind of the cost side, the the pressures that all businesses are under are just, I think, magnified for music venues and clubs. And you've got this situation where Live Nation has bought up so many of them, which kind of skews the market. It makes it takes away that kind of element of independent people pushing music, which is not in some way connected to this larger ecosystem, which is how the interesting things come up, right? It's clubs which are owned and promoted by people who just do it basically for the love. And it's a shame that it has to be like that, but I mean, it's kind of always was. And going back to this kind of tour I've done in Asia, the majority of the gigs that I played were for people who weren't doing it to make money. They were doing it because they wanted to put on a party, because there weren't any other parties that they want to go to, where they were. And that kind of class of person, I mean, kind of that kind of level of enthusiasm in a person has always been, I think, really what's kept the dance scene going, and what's kept it kind of kept it interesting, kept it turning over, kept the music kind of like progressing. It's not big festivals that support new music, really. They just take whoever's biggest in whatever scene and stick them on a big stage. Like it's always been the small promoters who just do it for the love. Quite often, who are DJs themselves or producers themselves, do it to give themselves a platform. And it's the same with labels. Like I started my label to put out my music because no one else wanted to put it out, and it's like it's the same for so many people. So many of these promotions started like that, but you have to have that kind of turn, like kind of churn, and it's so difficult to have the churn at a club level if the small venues are not viable as businesses, and if they're not viable because of inflation, because of various different things. And then you have this other sort of demand side issue that you talk about with the kids wanting to go to festivals. It's kind of a perfect storm at the moment for small venues. And it's a real problem. It's a big problem.
Do you think your Asian tour revigorated you?
And it's nice going to places that you don't go very often and seeing the kind of enthusiasm that I'm talking about. Like, it's not, I mean, it hasn't really filled me with a great amount of optimism in terms of like, the health of the global scene overall. But the fact that there are people still willing to spend their time doing it and doing it properly, and, putting their kind of heart and soul into it, even at a small, a kind of 200-300 cap level, or even smaller, that's it's kind of like it's nice that that's still there, in strange places that you wouldn't necessarily expect. Like I mean, that oil club is a great example of it. But that's I mean, there are other smaller examples of people just putting hiring out somewhere and putting on a party, booking a DJ, and booking a DJ partly because I heard this a lot actually on this tour. The local DJs needs to see the perception is of the promoters anyway, is that the local DJs need to see proper DJs in huge quotation marks, right? I realize how pompous that sounds, but like there's a real sense that like the kind of culture has been eroded by TikTok and TikTok techno and Boiler Room and these things that give a false impression to kids about what DJing is and what clubbing is and what this culture is. So what I heard, like I said, more than once on this trip was that, like, it's just really useful for the local kids to see it done properly, and hopefully I was able to do it properly. I don't know, that's why I was part of the reason I was there apparently. And just having people like that who understands the culture and understand the fact that it's important that it's preserved, to some degree, it's good those people are still there, basically. Really good, despite all the challenges that they face and everyone else in the industry faces.
Well, it's like I'll name drop now. I had Neil Barnes on from left field, and he was telling me like whenever he plays, he doesn't look at the people dancing. He looks at the person that's not dancing.
Right.
Are you kind of like
Okay. Okay.
you want to try and make that person like at least fucking smile?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah. I mean, I've my kind of journey as a DJ has been, from when I first started. Well, my first paid gigs were playing drum and bass, and in the kind of 98, 99 when I was a student, basically. And then that turned into garage. And when I finished studying, moved back to London, started playing on pirate radio, playing garage on pirate radio. And the end of the garage scene eventually turned into grime and dubstep, and that's how eventually Hotflush became a dubstep label. But my sort of DJing in clubs journey, like when I started doing it properly, it was early dubstep, and early dubstep was hard music to get people to dance to. Like it was very especially if they hadn't heard it before. Like I mean, you had like the dubstep parties where people knew what they were coming to hear, and that's one thing. But when you were playing it to a crowd which wasn't familiar, wow, that was a hard sell. That was a difficult thing to do, and especially when and as dubstep became more popular, and we were doing the kind of sort of the kind of left field version of dubstep, the kind of dubstep crossed with techno stuff, and the stuff around that. Again, the people that wanted to hear dubstep didn't like that stuff. I mean, I remember playing something like, it would have been in like 2008 or 2009, playing a dubstep party in Poland, and dubstep had really got big in Poland, and like Scream and Banger and stuff were playing, and like it was a big rave kind of thing. And I was doing like the dubstep / techno stuff that I was doing at the time was definitely accepted in the broader scene, but it was a kind of left field version of it. And I would play techno tracks in my sets, not a lot, but I would play one or two. And I played Jeff Mills' The Bells in that set, and people were furious. I mean, furious. Like I was just destroyed on live the next day. Like, this isn't pure. Like, this guy's trashing the kind of legacy of like, this guy thinks he's dubstep. Like, it's like just an amazing level of vitriol. And some people danced at the time, and in the moment, some people didn't. But my view of DJing, generally speaking, largely as a result of that period, is that the mark of a good DJ is getting people to dance to music that they think they don't like, or they wouldn't normally like. They wouldn't confess to liking. Basically, if you can do that, and you can do that consistently, then you're very good at DJing. No matter whatever genre. And that's sort of always my kind of the challenge that I set for myself with my sets, is to always play at least a couple of records that are really gonna, be tough for some, or would be tough for some people if you just played them without any context. The challenge is to construct a context in which those records make sense. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. I mean, you can definitely fall on your face doing that kind of stuff. On this particular tour, I was I was mostly playing techno, but I had a whole bunch of this kind of new UK garage type stuff with me. There was a producer called DJ Jackham, who I think is just brilliant, and his stuff is just, yeah, I think he's the best of that kind of group of producers. Anyway, so I would always play some of that stuff, and sometimes, and the thing about that stuff is that either it really, really works or it really, really doesn't, and a lot of it is dependent on the context, as I said, that you kind of create to play it. And I had on this trip, I had the full range of reactions to that stuff. I mean, I had the gig in Tokyo. Kids were pogoing to this stuff, just like absolutely just couldn't get enough of it. And then another show, completely clear the dance floor in a way that I haven't done for many a long day. Just absolute, complete destruction, not in a good way, of this club. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't always work, but it's kind of fun trying. And if you can do that, if you can make it work more often than not, then I think you're probably pretty good.
Well, what's the point of playing paint by numbers? I just don't understand it. I mean, there's just too much in life just doing that, playing safely. I mean, I look back to turntablism and just see how they, like, I mean, I remember DJ Crush getting the elastic band on the turntable, something I had never seen in my entire life. And I went, what the fuck? And I want more of this, because it was out of the blue. It was something that was just, it blew my mind. And that's what I want from a DJ. I want a DJ to push me to a place where I didn't think I could go, but
Absolutely.
Still make me dance.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's the kind of nub of turntablism. Like, can you do it and still it be a kind of compelling experience for everyone on the dance floor, rather than just the kind of dudes at the front, like watching what's going on the decks? We've had Drum, or AKA DJ Rum, on the podcast, who is a new and notable exponent of technical DJing with proper turntables. And he's very good at it and talks really well about it. But for me, and I said this to him in the conversation I had, like, I don't like big tempo changes in DJ sets. And I think it's because I got into it through taking loads of ecstasy. And if you have a big tempo change on ecstasy, it really fucks with your buzz. Like, it just does. Like, it doesn't, ecstasy, the way ecstasy affects your brain means that it really rewards doing the same thing at about the same rate, for hours on end. So big tempo change is just not good for that kind of thing. And that's the way his DJ set, involves multiple instances of tempo changing. So I actually really enjoy listening to his sets at home, which I do. I mean, I mentioned listening to classical music. I do occasionally sling on a DJ set, and I really enjoy his when I'm doing some cooking or whatever, or doing the dishes. But in a club, I don't think I'd be super into it. So yeah, but for other people, it really works. So I mean, there's no right or wrong way of doing it, I think, is the kind of important thing. And there are, some certain people are able to do things which really connect with people in a dancehall kind of a way. Personally, I'd rather listen to I don't know, who's a appropriately boring DJ. I don't know, Richie, like 5-hour Richie Horton set, which does changes like 2 BPM in the whole 5 hours. I actually like that stuff. So or an Andy C set, 3 hours of Andy C, like where it's just 170 the whole way through. Like, that's totally fine for me.
Yeah, give me a Laurent Garnier set
But
any day.
another good example, yeah. Although in fairness, he does he jumps around a little bit more, but yeah, great
Yeah,
DJ. He's been on the podcast actually. He was a great podcast guest.
oh, I bet. Like he's just. I mean, again, you know, I see little stuff on Instagram where he's talking about the scene and everything, but I've seen the episode that you had with him. He just comes across as this genuine fella that just has this passion for music, but for life
Totally
as well and food. It's
right.
just, it's amazing, and that's a good segue to talk about your podcast because I know you. So yeah, wanted to talk about music not diving. Obviously, it wasn't that in the beginning. It was not the Not Diving podcast,
Not a diving podcast. Yeah,
not a
that was the
diving
original
podcast.
original
Yeah.
title. Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Where that's a good question. I don't know. I was thinking about search engine optimization and the problems with being a musical artist known as Scuba, which has been problematic in the past. And I just wanna emphasize that it wasn't a podcast about scuba diving, but I think I was maybe overthinking it a little bit too much. But yeah, I was when we made the move to video, it seemed like a decent opportunity to change the name, and I had been told that maybe having music in the title might help instead of just saying it's not about diving. Maybe actually making a positive attempt at a message would be a better idea than a negative one. But yeah,
Yeah, I kind of had a few messages that I need to change mine because I'm over in America to music and soccer. And I was like,
okay.
I will not say that word. I will not use that word. No, it's footy. But I mean, for you, obviously, you're a busy fella and you have your label. So starting a podcast, that's another kind of thing to, not to worry about, but on your plate. Um, and obviously, it's did it start during COVID or right
No,
after?
it was after. So basically what happened was I got really into podcasts during COVID. So I became a fan of the format, basically. And became aware as a result of that there just weren't very many good music ones, essentially, or any good music ones, in fact, and certainly not good dance music ones or electronic music ones. So I you know, figured let's do one. Figured I can do this. Surely it can't be that hard. Can't be that hard. Um, and doing it audio only isn't that hard. I mean, it took a little bit of, learning on the job, getting up to speed. But like I said, when we moved to video, which we did earlier this year, we basically did 2.5. So we started, it was January 22, I think. Was that right? 22, 23, 24. Yeah, that is right. We're just coming up to 4 years. Um, in January. But so we did 3 years basically, the best part of 3 years as audio only, and the move to video was and remains substantially more work because I don't do it as don't we do some of them like this over Zoom or similar, but we do the majority of the episodes in a studio, which means I have to get on a plane and go to London. I live in Spain most of the time. And so we basically do that twice a month, record 2 episodes back to back, and have a team of people who know what they're doing with that kind of thing. Don't do a ton of editing. They basically just go up, as they are. And obviously, having done it for 3 years, that was good training in terms of actually conducting interviews and making it vaguely coherent. But yeah, I mean, essentially committing to produce an hour and a half of telly a week is quite a lot, really. But like I said, having the experience of doing the audio one first, was good preparation for it. And it's you're right to say that I am busy and I do a lot of stuff, but it hasn't been that onerous. Like I would say I spend maybe a day and a half a week on the podcast, that sort of amount of time. So it's not crazy. I spend maybe it's about the same as what I spend on doing the label, I would say. So I would, or maybe it's slightly more on the label. Maybe it's 2 days on the label, how many days in the week are there? I definitely don't take 2 days off a week. I don't know. I mean, well, I don't have kids, so I have more time to play with, right? But it's a kind of juggling between the label, making music, and doing the podcast. And I don't play out a ton anymore. That's the other thing. I think there was a long time where I was playing, you know, 80, 90 shows a year kind of thing, and that would not be possible now. It's just that, I mean, it's just a recovery time, from being out for 2 or 3 gigs in a week is just too much. So not DJing a ton enables me to do this, basically.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, for me, it's a bit of therapy,
Yeah.
I always do the episodes when my kids are at school, because if my kids were here, they'd be fucking banging on the door. Hey, dad, 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 like constantly. But yeah, it's just that, for me, I love talking about music. I love talking about football, but most importantly, I love talking to people. And I think, it comes across, and it comes across with you as well, Paul, that you're invested in the guest, because again, who wants to hear me waffle on all the time? And you're listening to the guest tell their story, and that's number one for me. Is just, and it's not all about music, because I mean, like I said, I'm a massive fan of yours, and yours is about culture as well.
Yeah, you've put the nail on the head. Yeah, we're not really music, making podcasts. Like, we have musicians on primarily, but really it's about, the culture and the business and the way it all kind of works. And occasionally we'll get into the kind of nitty gritty of making records and the technical stuff. But personally, I find that pretty boring to listen to. So what I'm really interested in is, like, the way people kind of interact with the scene emotionally, and at a general kind of its involvement in their lives. I guess music's involvement in people's lives, and this music in particular. And then also the business, which I find absolutely fascinating too. I've done a recently, did a recent episode on why people shouldn't boycott Spotify, which quite a lot of people were not happy about that. But I think that there is not enough debate around this around the kind of basically, there's too much received wisdom in music, and there's too many. It's always just one accepted consensus narrative, which is never really challenged, and that's always really frustrated me. Since I've been, since I've been doing the label, and I like to try and push back against those things as much as we possibly can on the podcast, because it just doesn't really happen anywhere else. And so I try and have people on who are able to talk about those kinds of things, and are able to talk about, think about things in a slightly wider kind of a way. I'm always getting badgered to have, like, younger people on, but like, I mean, quite frankly, your average 22-year-old would not be a good guest on my podcast. Do you know what I mean? So, like, although, I mean, I think we're going to try and have one or two on next year, maybe. But we're trying to talk about interesting things, basically, and it's quite serious. And maybe if it's a kind of, if I have a criticism of my podcast, it's maybe a little bit too serious. But the stuff we're talking about is, for the most part, quite serious. So, and like I said, I don't think there's anything quite like what we're doing, really. So I guess that it just, to that extent, it must be, there must be something in it.
Do you have a favorite guest,
Mm,
or a favorite topic that you've talked about?
well, I mean, yeah. So basically, there are some favorites people who just have amazing stories, and are great talkers. Great people who are really good at explaining their experiences. Like Fred P is the one I always say when I'm asked that question. It was like it was like 2.5 hours. We were talking about his, growing up in New York, and his, I suppose, philosophical approach to life. It was a really kind of wide ranging thing, and it kept kind of coming back to music. But like, he's such an interesting bloke. And I mean, and like you say, like, the joy is in talking to people. And the thing about talking to a musician, doing a podcast is like, I mean, for me, it's so good because these are people often who I've met before, but I've said 20 words to them backstage, and you kind of establish whether you're cool with someone. It's like, and if you're cool with someone, it's like, yeah, all right, mate, and you're kind of friends with them, but you've never really had a proper conversation. So it's the opportunity to actually talk in a open-ended kind of a way for an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours, or the longest one I've done is like 3 hours. I mean, those, I mean, even with your good friends, how often does that happen? So yeah, I mean, favorite guests, like, so yeah, definitely Fred P. Shackleton was great. I mean, he's a good friend of mine anyway. That's an example of someone who, I've had many long conversations with in the past, and he was quite nervous about coming on because he doesn't do a ton of interviews, but actually really relaxed into it. And he's a very kind of discursive person, generally speaking, really, really smart guy, and said a lot of very interesting things. And it was a slightly different conversation than what we would have had. It was different than the conversations that we have when the mic isn't on, but it was close enough to those conversations for it to be kind of quite nice, Laurent Garnier, already mentioned him. That was a great one. I had no idea that he was and I had no idea that he worked at the French embassy in London in the 1980s, he served the Queen, I think, or something, at the French embassy in London. That was a good little anecdote that he had tucked up his sleeve. Yeah, I mean, we've done nearly 200 episodes, so I was kind of blank. I tell you what, a good business one actually on the subject of the music industry was Teed, formerly Totally Enormous Extinct Dinosaurs. He really knows it inside out. Like, been signed to a major, been dropped, like doing it himself now, more successful than ever, doing it completely independently. So, I mean, that's the kind of conversation that I enjoy having because, the music industry, generally speaking, is poorly understood even by people who work in it, and particularly artists. So having that kind of almost kind of like infotainment type, episode every now and then is something I really like doing. So yeah, there's lots of different ones really.
Now, I want to talk about, obviously, Hotflush is your baby, but you've also put out, tracks on Last Night on Earth, Sasha's label. This is your
Actually got released out on Crosstown Rebels today. I can't believe I
get up.
Scuba record on Crosstown Records. Never thought that would happen, but Crosstown Rebels, I should say. Get the name and the label right. Yeah, you're right though. Yeah, almost everything on Hotflush, which is something which is not going to change really. I've been doing some stuff on different labels this year, but generally speaking, I like to have control over stuff.
Well, when you did, like, because you put 2 EPs out now for Sasha. Now, when obviously, you're a record label owner, what you look for in an artist to sign. When you made those tracks, did you think of Last Night on Earth?
So basically, the reason that I've been doing stuff on other labels this year is because Hotflush, the label, has become in the last year or two much more bass music focused again. So we've been through various periods with it. It's as mentioned, started off in the early dubstep scene, became gradually more of a house label, then became a techno label for a bit, and it's kind of meandered for a while. But the majority of what we've been doing in the last 18 months or so has been 140 bangers, essentially. Big bass lines, breaky stuff, that kind of stuff. But actually, what I've been making, usually over time, the label has reflected what I play as a DJ and what I make. But for whatever reason, that has decoupled in the last year or two. So instead of muddying the waters with Hotflush, I figured let's do some stuff on some other labels instead. So with Sasha, he was a really important person in my career, because when I started making house for the first time in 2011, 10, 11, he was the first big DJ to play my house tunes, basically. So I've always been very grateful to him for that, and obviously been a fan of him as well. So, and I've always send him tunes to play regardless of whether they're going to come out or not. So it made sense to do something with him, and decided to do 2 at the time. I had a bunch of tunes kicking around, and the way the industry is now, it doesn't make a ton of sense to do 4-track EPs. You're better off doing a one or two trackers. So yeah, what could have been a 4-track EP was just came out as two trackers. And the crosstown thing that's just come out today is 2 tracks too. So um, yeah, it's basically music which could have come out on Hot Flush in a different era of Hot Flush, but didn't really make sense to do it now. Um, and I was lucky enough to have two great labels wanting to put out my tunes, really, which is very nice, I have to say.
They're all like frigging cracking. What I love about like Sasha's label, you know, it's not all prog based.
Yeah,
Like a lot of these progressive house labels, it's just for four on the floor. I mean, Otik has been on last night on Earth as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's what I love about Sasha. He's he likes experimental music, the electronic side and the break side of it, and it's just it was amazing. Like both of your releases, I think have kind of given the label a bit of a kick up its backside.
Oh, that's nice of you to say so. They're both quite different as well, aren't they? Like
Yeah,
there's, like I said, two tracks on either, and all the 4 tracks are quite different to each other. So yeah,
which is what you want.
yeah,
I mean, again, I've always, as a record digger, I would go to a record shop and I stay clear from the wall. I call it the wall of shame because I don't like anything that everyone else has. So I
okay,
would spend way too many hours in a record shop, and I would usually, leave with 1 or 2 tracks, but I would mostly play a lot of the B sides just
okay,
because they were different. And I
yeah,
love dubs. I absolutely adore dubs.
yeah,
You take like the best part of the original and just obviously just dub it up, and I just love it. But yeah, your Hot Flush label, mate, is again, you can't put your finger on it. And like you said, yeah, you're putting out a lot of bass tracks, but you still can't put your finger on Hot Flush. You cannot just say it's a bass label, it's a drum and bass label, it's a dubstep label, it's a techno label. And that kudos to you for not only your tracks, but picking the right artist for your label.
yeah. I mean, we always wanted it to be like that, I have to say. But the model for when I say we, because I initially had a partner on it, um, who left quite early on. But we did have a kind of vision for it at the very start, and the vision basically was early Hospital records. So before Hospital became a straight drum and bass label, they were releasing drum and bass, but they would also put out sort of broken beat stuff and kind of breaky stuff like Landslide, the early London Electricity stuff, like different tempos, and that's what we wanted to do basically from day one. And it was a complete accident that it turned into a dubstep label, because and it was just an accident of being in the right place at the right time and getting to know the people, going to Forward every month, and just being in a position where you're just getting given loads of amazing music that was basically unique. So that was an accident, but broadening it out was made sense with the original kind of ethos of it. So it's nice of you to say that. That's kind of yeah, validation really. And I have said previously that the catalog is basically my life's work, really. I mean, it's 22 years now of doing it. Basically my whole adult life, or majority of my adult life, and the vast majority. I'm not that old. Um, uh, and that's just what I've been doing, and it's the kind of record of it. So it's quite nice having it there, just sort of sat there. And you can kind of like pick out, stuff that came out in whatever year. Most of it, I'm basically, there is one period that like I'm like, that wasn't that great, that couple of years. I won't tell you which period it was, but um almost all of it I can be quite happy with looking back on it.
All right, my last musical question before we talk a little footy. Who chose Vogue? between you and George for the
Oh,
boy.
me, absolutely. Yeah. No, he was appalled that I was going to put it on. He couldn't believe it. But I had tried it previously in sets, so I knew it worked. And it's just a house tune anyway. So, like as I said, like you need to create the right. You can't open with it. You need to create the right context, as mentioned previously. But if if you've established a relationship with the crowd, that's definitely a record you can put on, and fuck yeah. I mean, it's a banger, right? It's a
Mhm.
massive banger. So yeah,
Yeah,
he was like, please don't do this. I was like, it's happening, mate. It's happening. And it worked. So
oh, it did. It ended really, really well, and everybody seemed to, get off on it. And yeah, you can see George's like his little eyes, peripheral vision, going, "What the fuck are you doing?"
yeah, no, I had a period where I would play that, or I would play Kiss by Prince,
Hmm.
which is less of an obvious one, so not a house tune, but I would play that last sometimes. I would also play Cream by Prince. That's that was more difficult. I actually once started a set at Fabric, and this was a football related thing, so maybe a good segue. I can't remember what the thing was, but it was something like I put out a tweet out saying, I think it was North London Derby, and it was in the era of us being terrible defensively. And I put out a tweet saying, if we keep a clean sheet today, I'll start with Crazy for You by Madonna at Fabric tonight. And they kept a clean sheet, so I had to start with Crazy for You at Fabric, and I did it. It was like I said, it's much harder when you do that kind of record as your opening record as opposed to your closing one. So yeah, there were probably some confused people in the club that night, but yeah.
All ends well. All right, football,
Right.
Arsenal supporter.
So
Who's your childhood footballing hero?
wow, this is I'm sorry to say this, but my first season as an Arsenal fan was 88-89. So uh that was my introduction to football as a sport. So I just assumed that's what it was like. Like the last game was on a Friday night, wasn't it? It was on telly. And I had been to my dad was not an Arsenal fan, but had decided that, he could bond with his 9-year old son by taking him to the local team. I was actually born just off Highbury Corner, so within a mile of the old ground, and which is nice because it enables me to credibly say that I'm kind of local fan. But I was not from a family of Arsenal fans or anything like that, so it was just really my dad, doing a slightly out of character good dad thing, taking me to the games. So I'd been to like maybe 3 or 4 games that season or something, and was following it for sure. And then that thing happened, and you know, you're hooked, aren't you?
Mhm.
Probably not you, but
No,
me. I was hooked.
yeah, I was very yeah, very distraught that day.
I'm sure you were, yeah, absolutely. But Liverpool had a 20-year run of being, the best team in Europe, maybe, arguably at certain points. So it could have been
Yeah,
worse.
well, I mean, you win some, you lose some, you draw some, but you keep supporting. That's the thing. But it's yeah, it was a very tough one to take. I keep I keep hearing Michael Thomas. I wake up with it with his name. Like,
Charging through the midfield.
how nobody stopped him, I have no idea.
Just take him down for Christ's sake.
Yeah, just take the free kick, do something, just to stop him. Yeah, it was a tough one, but I mean that's the thing. I think when you come into, like, for me, I'm a '70s kid,
Yeah.
so Liverpool were always winning, and
Yeah, exactly. Kevin
when
Keegan, Kenny Dalglish, all
yeah,
that.
Ian Rush, Alan Hansen, Graham Souness, the hard, Suey, the hard man.
Yeah.
Uh, I was used to winning, and then the early 2000s, it's when we stopped kind of winning, and I was
Yep.
like, I'm not used to this. I don't like it, but again, you still support, um,
Yeah,
and
I mean, you guys had, like, obviously you had that kind of big drought with the league, but you were still winning
Still winning
decent.
cups here and there.
Yeah, and I won the Champions League as well in 2005, and so it's like it wasn't that bad. It was never got that. The banter era was never that bantery. It wasn't like United now, for example, or as bad as we got for a few years there. So yeah, it could have been worse. Pure lot.
So, what's your thoughts on Arteta? I know we've kind of had a little chit chat on our messages about Arteta. Like this is his fifth season now. He's really got to produce, I think.
I don't really agree, to be honest. I mean, by produce you mean win a trophy, of
Yeah.
course. I don't really agree with that.
Well,
To be
win one
honest.
of the big ones, the Prem or the Champions League.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like it's so hard to win those competitions, particularly now. It's so competitive, and the margins are so fine. Like to me, Arteta has been just unbelievably good, and mostly in changing the perception of the club. Like we had been so shit for so long, and just comically shit. From like the second half. I mean, like Wenger's achievement in making it to the Champions League every year in a period where we had no money is underrated, I think, generally speaking. But the sort of the last quarter of the Wenger era was, I mean, embarrassing. Like it was. I mean, like, and it says a lot about his underlying coaching ability that we never, really dropped down the table like get that badly. Obviously by the end it was looking very dodgy, but like the fact that he kept us relatively competitive is pretty incredible. But like he did it basically by you know deciding that the defensive midfield position was not something that he wanted to do, and that was so bad, I think, for so many players' careers. Like, I mean, talked about, referred to the era that we were terrible defensively. Like, when reading an interview with Sebastian Squillaci, who has sort of got a really bad reputation as from amongst Arsenal fans and for his time in England, but like he'd been a good player in Spain, and we basically, when he was in the team, didn't have anything in front of the back four. So like it's this gaping hole, and so we would just get run through constantly, completely exposed. That's just not serious, And like famously, signed Granit Xhaka instead of Kante, and the Granit Xhaka like is my favorite player of the Emirates era, and that will tell you a lot about my attitude towards football. But obviously, Kante is one of the best players ever in his position. But it's a position which Wenger didn't consider to be a position at all, seemingly. So you could completely understand why he wouldn't want to sign Kante, and he would want to sign someone like Granit Xhaka, who's world class passing midfielder. Certainly has had his ups and downs, and divided opinion between the fans, but like is just an unbelievable character, generally speaking. But like, I mean, we were a joke for so long, and Arteta's, to come back to the main point of the question, like Arteta's achievement in turning us into just an unbelievably well coached unit. Not only that, but a club which is kind of regained its pride, as much as anything else. Like we'd completely lost that, and yeah, it would be great to win trophies. It'd be great to win the league. We should win the league. If we don't win the league this season, we will never win it. But so many things can happen in a season, and we are still facing your lot, but also the best manager in history, certainly the best league manager in history, with an artificially inflated budget and 115 charges and all the rest of it. So it's not like we've got like a free run at it or anything like that. It would be great if we win, and we are, I think, deservedly the favourites at this point. But if we don't win, I'm not saying Arteta out, not at all. Like he's been unbelievable, and who would do a better job? I just don't think there's anyone out there who would do a better job. Maybe Klopp, but like no one else.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we were talking earlier about like overreactions, and that's what sells on the internet. That's what sells on the TV. Is Arsenal TV is just it's
Arsenal fan TV. My God, I mean those guys are, in my opinion, Spurs fans, and that's
Luton Town fans, I think.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. Like their contribution to toxifying the atmosphere around the club, and particularly towards the end of Wenger, but yeah, I just awful. I mean, one thing, I mean, Arsenal fan media is generally really good. So like, there's an Ars blog, there's also the Arsenal Vision podcast, which is run by an American bloke, but is largely staffed by it's like the three guests, the three regular panelists apart from him are British. That's a great podcast, I think, and they have they actually could sometimes do because the Anfield Wrap is the famous Liverpool one, isn't it? And there's no doubt there's other ones, but they occasionally will do. The guy from the Anfield Wrap goes on Arsenal podcast sometimes, don't they? But there's a really good ecosystem of quite serious stuff. Additionally to the dumb shit like Arsenal Fan TV and Mark Goldbridge and all the rest of it. I don't know who there must be a Liverpool equivalent of that, and then it has to be.
There's many. There's many.
Right. So yeah. So there's like there is some, I think good alternative media stuff around football. It's not just the dumb shit. Yeah.
Well, you can criticize without saying Arteta out or Slot out. Slot won the league, and I'm so sick and tired of hearing this. Like, well, he won the league with Klopp's team. Well, Klopp got fifth and third the 2 seasons before.
Yeah.
Slot tweaked that team, and he turned Gravenberch into a world-class defensive midfielder.
Yep.
Basically. And Klopp couldn't do that because Grav barely played with him. Obviously I love Klopp because not only was he a great manager, but he understood Scousers. He got the City, and I love that. But Slot is a Dutch tactician, hopefully better than Ten Hag. Much better because we won the league. But
I think he's better than Ten Hag. I think we can safely say that. Right?
Yeah, better than Van Gaal, better than any other Dutch manager we've seen. But there's a lot of play this season for Liverpool, and I don't know if you saw the Andy Robertson interview after Scotland won.
No, I didn't.
He came out and said before the match he had a really hard time. He had a breakdown because his best mate was Diogo Jota.
Right, yeah.
And I don't think we kind of dehumanize these players. We look at them as workhorses instead of human beings. And, I've noted it's on Liverpool groups as well. Just fucking get on with it. I had an auntie pass away. I had a cousin pass away. I'm still going to fucking work. It's like, yeah, but it's a bit different when you're in the media and you're pictured every fucking single day of your life. And you've got to get on with it. And your best mate his dressing room thing is still there.
Yeah.
You're seeing that every day in training. So, there's a different perspective for me for this Liverpool team now. At first, I was kind of, like, let's do it for Diego. And when I saw that Robbo interview, it really made me think like, fuck, I've got to stop being a bit selfish about Liverpool. And it's about these players right now. Let's get through this together. And, there was talk of like, we need to stop singing the Diego song on 20 minutes. And that's up to the individual. That's a big thing. But I just feel like this team's for me, this team's too good to be shite.
I mean,
after 11 games, I mean, come on.
Sure. I mean, I acknowledge everything you've just said. I think tactically, Slot has been questionable this season with some of his decisions and the way he's set the team up. I think it's probably fair to say. Clearly, there are situational elements at play too, which are going to affect the way the team performs for sure and everything behind the scenes. But I mean, the spending over the summer and the kind of trying to integrate those players has been tough, right? And the way, I mean, it is a different tactical approach to last season, isn't it? Like, so that's substantially different. And it's looking a little bit rough.
I'm trying to figure out what tactical like positions he's playing in. I mean, he's got players playing out of position. Sobozai, who's a
completely different fullbacks as well, and profile of fullbacks, right? That's the thing, because I mean, Trent leaving is obviously a massive deal. And what do you think about the the reception that he got and the general kind of feeling in the fan base about Trent?
It's pantomime. It's. I mean, he gave up, and since 6 years old, he's been with Liverpool.
Yeah.
And I love the lad. I think it's the way he left. I think people wish he would have just come out during the summer and said, "This is my last season with Liverpool." I think
Right.
more
A
people
full
would have,
year in advance, you mean?
yeah, more people would have been like, "Okay, I understand that." And then the shit where he can speak fluent Spanish.
I love that detail. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't learn fluent Spanish in like 2 weeks. So obviously he knew what he was doing. And I think that just rubs people the wrong way. I think the booing to me is a bit pantomimey,
Yeah.
But again, I'm not going to tell somebody how to, approach a game and boo that person, but not boo this person. Michael Owen's kind of the same. He played for United. For me, if you play for United, then
Yeah, that's surely worse, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, 100% worse. So yeah, I mean, Trent won us everything. But you can tell in the team, even though I love Conor Bradley and I like Frimpong, but they're just different defenders than Trent. And I think that's what's missing from Salah is the passing that he got from Trent.
Yeah.
He's just being pushed out too much on the wing at the
Right.
moment. But I think it will all click eventually because Wirtz is an undeniable talent. Isak, once he's up to speed, he's going to start popping in the goals. But for me, right now,
Maybe.
Arsenal,
Maybe.
he will, mate. He will. He just needs to eat a bit more meat, put on more weight, put some muscle on. But to
Go
me,
live in Texas for a while.
yeah, yeah. Well, you probably only need to live here a month and you'll put on quite a few stone. But to me, right now, Arsenal have the best squad in the Premier League. Just every position solid. Like if somebody's out, somebody comes in who's just as good. And I think that's the issue with Liverpool. If Van Dijk,
Yeah, I mean, I think. Go on.
if Van Dijk goes out, who've we got? No one.
Yeah.
That's our problem. But you're stacked in that, and you are favourites to win the league, and I would rather Arsenal win the league than Man City, just because I don't like how Man City have done it. Yeah, I'm going to say this as a football fan. They play some fantastic football. Guardiola is one of the best managers in the world. It's what they've done off the pitch that I do not like.
Yeah, cool.
It's sports washing. It's bollocks to me. But yeah,
It's cheating. They've definitely just cheated, in my opinion.
But
As much as you
again,
can.
when's the shit going to stop though? I mean, this 115 charges has been going for what 2-3 years now.
Oh yeah, I mean, and to be honest, like Chelsea were doing, in my opinion, something pretty similar
Ugh.
during the Abramovich years. I mean, it's not a coincidence. I think that they've been substantially worse since Abramovich was eased out. But yeah, I mean, just with regards to us though, I think I think generally speaking, I would agree that we have overall the strongest squad. I think if we're lacking something, it's genuine star quality up front and in the attacking areas. I mean, apart from Saka, I don't think we have a genuinely world class attacker. I'm not. Yeah, I don't count Rice as an attacker, even though his role is actually quite attacking. Like if you think of talking about the kind of front three positions, we don't have a genuine consistent match winner apart from Saka. And if there's a weakness, it's probably that. But in terms of numbers, and it's being tested quite substantially at the moment because we've got just ridiculous injuries again this season. But I said that if we don't win it this season, we never will. It's basically because of that. Yeah, we have the best squad, and also arguably the best first 11. If we can't win it now, then Jesus, and a manager who is like, as I said, in my opinion, as good as any manager we ever had. Tactically, obviously it's a very different game now, and tactics are much more a much bigger part of it. But yeah, he's you can't call him a genius because he hasn't won anything, but like he's amazing in my opinion, absolutely amazing. So we'll see, we will see. But yeah, we fucking should win it, really.
It's a long season, you know, things just seem to happen,
I
especially
mean,
during the fall.
City are looking a little bit ominous with Haaland. But if Haaland is out for a month at any point, I think we'll win. Basically,
Yeah.
it's kind of that simple. Like if Haaland misses 10 games, then we probably should win. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
But
I
like
mean,
I said before we got started that I've kind of tuned out slightly of football just because the anxiety level is just getting a little bit too much for me. And you know, I've watched Arsenal through, you know, what every game through, you know, every bit of the banter era, and then it's kind of ironic. Now this is the first time where I've been a bit like, oh God, can I actually handle watching this game? And even though, like, you know, we're better now than we have been at any point since 2004, without a shadow of a doubt. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's just getting over the line, isn't it? And that's the thing, because I think once this team does win something, everything will just relax, and we will be treated differently in the media. Fans will treat us differently online. The whole thing will just be completely different. But until that thing happens, it's just like, oh God, just get it done. You know, like
well, I mean, it's just like us. I mean, you know, we hear from United fans all the time. We've won it 20 times. We've won it 20 times. We were so close, obviously, during the Brendan Rodgers era, you know,
yeah,
where we just screwed up those last couple of games. And I thought that was it as well. I was like, we're never winning the league again.
yeah.
We were so close, and you know, getting 100 points, 99 points, and fucking
I
City
mean, that is
beating us by a point. But
pretty
then we
amazing,
won it.
isn't it? Yeah.
But winning that Champions League for us in 2019 is the one where it kick-started us, and then the next season we won the league. And I
Yeah.
think just getting that, I think that's what I was kind of alluding to with Arteta and the team. Get this either Champions League, win that, and you kick on from there.
I
And
definitely think, yeah, if we win one, we'll win more,
yeah,
definitely, because the squad is young, and you know, it feels like there's a bit of a monkey on its back currently, you know,
Mhm.
and if and when that is exercised, then, but then again, you know, in 2004, we're like, yeah, we're gonna kick on and dominate now for the rest of the decade, and fucking hell. Actually, to be honest, the one that hurts me the most is the 2002-03 season. That's the season which really stung because we were definitely the best team. And that team deserved to win three in a row. And two out of three, it just doesn't seem as good, anywhere near as good. You know, even having the Invincibles season in the following year, like that United team was fucking shit. And losing to them, that fucking game at Bolton, you know, like, oh, it still makes me angry now. It really does. Um, but that team was very different to this team. Like that was a
Mhm.
team of individuals, and like from the centre backs all the way through, from, you know, Campbell, Vieira, Pires, Bergkamp, Henry. There's just great world class individual players. This team is much more of a system. It's much more of a kind of collective, in a
Well, it
way
seems
that,
like we'll fight for each other more.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like tactically it's much more like that. It's kind of like designed, the thing is designed to be a collective in a way that Wenger teams weren't really, you know. um and again, testament to Arteta, like, you know, he's put something together which is really um durable. It seems silly to say that, you know, without having won anything, but you know, it really feels like they care about each other, you know, and you don't get that without great leadership, do you? You know, that comes from the top, you know, and I think the Klopp teams were sort of similar like that, you know, like there was a real kind of sense of having that, you know, would kind of go over the, you know, die for your teammate kind of thing. It's like in the trenches, you know, going over the top together. And teams don't have that without, you know, world class coaches, you know, a world class team, you know, coaching team at the top that really kind of sets that agenda. So So yeah, it'll be nice if we win, but it's not the end of the world if we don't, and we'll have another go. The team's young enough, and obviously Gary Neville will be like, "Meh, meh, meh, he needs to go now," like whatever. And fucking Carragher will be like, for Carragher, who's kind of gone from being quite nice about us to, uh, put some more pressure than anyone else. But
Those
yeah,
two remind me. Remember the Muppet Show?
yeah,
The
okay,
two old fellas.
yeah, yeah,
Those
right.
two remind me of those. Like,
Molly and Marley, yeah.
yeah, he just talks so. Cara even talks so much shit about Liverpool now. It's,
Really? Because I
yeah,
mean, does he not? Well, I kind of bemoan the fact that we haven't got anyone in the media, a kind of Arsenal person in the media, really. And we got Ian Wright, who I think does generally
yeah.
speaking, a great job. But like, he's not, talking. He's not like a kind of arbiter like Neville or Carragher are, for United and Liverpool. Is Carragher not popular with Liverpool fans at the moment?
I mean, it's 50-50. Some of the stuff, I just think like Sky Sports writes it for him,
Yeah,
like
well,
scripted again, just to get a reaction.
it's for the socials basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just tired of that. But yeah, we'll see where we're all at the end of the season. I mean, I just want to get through this festive period. We've already got quite a number of injuries. Bradley's out for a month now,
Really?
muscle
Okay.
injury. So we've got no right back.
Yeah.
Frimpong's out till probably after New Year. Allison's back, which is good. He's a massive leader in the team. But yeah, we'll just see. You two,
Every club has it. Every club seemingly has ridiculous injuries this season. It's got to be because of the amount of games, right? It's
yeah.
just crazy. The calendar is completely crazy, and we're just flogging these guys into the ground. It's just ridiculous. And the pace of the game, particularly in the Premiership as well. Like, I mean, just the pace at which it's played now, like the impact, the speed of everything, and the fact that you have to do it twice a week, for 9 months or 10 months, even. Yeah, it's completely ridiculous.
Just let's just see, because the World Cup's this summer, how the Premier League is going to be next year.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty ropey quality, I imagine. Like
Yeah,
for the,
I would
the
think
first
so.
half.
For the first probably 3-4 months, we're going to see some absolutely dire matches. But let's get through this one. But Paul, I want to say, absolute pleasure having you on, mate. Again,
Nice, thanks.
I bring on people that have been a massive part of my musical journey. I haven't had a guest on that I don't buy their records or I've not listened to their DJ sets because I just, for me, I don't see the point in trying to have somebody that I have no connection with. So you are definitely one that I connect with big time. And yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate.
Very nice of you to say that, man. And yeah, very much enjoyed being on the show. Thanks for having me. Nice one.
Thank you. I want to say to all the guests that have been on this year, I've had so many amazing guests on. I'm very privileged to have all their stories on audio and video. But most importantly, it's like the listener. I thank you all for listening. As we come up to the festive period, please look after one another. Have a great holidays. Be safe. Be kind. As I always say at the end of this podcast, we live in a bit of a shit world. You turn the news on, and it's just horrible things going on. But immerse yourselves in your mates, in friends, even in strangers, and just be nice. If you want to check out Paul's music or what's going on, you can go to scubaofficial.bandcamp.com. You can go to hotflushrecordings.com. You can also go to the Bandcamp hotflush.bandcamp.com. And also, please check out Music Not Diving podcast on all the podcast outlets. Also on his YouTube channel. Like he said, he's got over 200 guests, and every single one of them is absolute quality. Again, thank you so much. Look forward to 2026. Hopefully, Liverpool win the league, but I know they probably won't. But that's all right. I'll still support him. But
Hopefully, yeah, to into Europe. That'd be an
yeah,
achievement from this point.
But until next time, please take care and we'll see you later.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening.